All right, this is part one of the behind the scenes of the bathroom machine. The way that I built this machine is doing it in two halves. You'll see that this side of the room is filled with machine, but oh, where is the machine stuff that's supposed to go? Hello, this machine was so hard to build. This basically is the one section of the video that has like 4 massive heavy foreign object tricks in a row. One of them is pretty straightforward, which I'll get to in a second, but I think it had possibly the #1 hardest trick in the video. Let's see if I can see a spider. There he is. I don't know what I'm gonna do with him yet, but it's gonna be fun. But yeah, so starting off with this towel trick, in concept, it's simple because there's just a heavy weight on the back that's pulling it down. It's more complex because there's a few subtle intricacies, like the release mechanism is sort of a leap day lever thing. The biggest problem, it's also detachable. The biggest problem with this trick is I needed a way to activate the towel shifting mechanism with just the force of a ping pong ball, because I really didn't want the ping pong ball to go into a separate connection and then have that trigger the towel. I really wanted it to be self-contained. And also, speaking of ping pong ball and the ball path itself, this is not how the trick used to look. I'll actually play a video right now of how the trick used to look, and you'll notice not only the trick is different, but the connection system is different. And basically, I just wasn't very happy with that version of the trick. The initial idea was, of course, the way you just saw. I had a path on the front and a path on the back, and then the path on the front would rise up to reveal the path on the back. It didn't really feel like much of a trick, because basically the front path, if I had extended the front path out, theoretically it could have gone into the cup anyway. Like, it didn't really feel like it was making use of the pathing of the trick, which is something that's really important for me, especially when I'm doing an intricate machine trick. And so my idea for fixing it effectively was to make it it's a 2-ball path still, but it's reusing the same set of tracks. So I'm basically making use of the height difference that the towel has when it's on a low position or a high position. When it's higher, the ball is able to go into the cup, and when it's lower, it's able to go into the clear, I mean, they're both clear cups, the smaller clear cup down there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else interesting about it. The way the towel actually spins is not just by itself. It is a ridiculously heavy weight back there, a couple wrenches, but it actually has a cardboard tube. And I guess I should also point out that this is a cardboard tube trick, which I haven't done in ages. I have a nostalgia for them because I really love old Toothpaste 35 videos. He was one that used them all the time. So I was like, how am I going to use these in this video? Because this is a massive video with hundreds of feet of track. Well, it's a bathroom theme, so I might as well use the toilet paper tracks in the bathroom. I should explain how I actually start the machine itself with the door closed. I basically have this long section of track that this Brio train very slowly goes down, and then it just knocks the tube. It's just a really easy way for me to get in here, close the door, and then also have this preset tile of dominoes that I can just set up by myself and knock down whenever I please. And the tape is really bad on these dominoes, but that's fine. So the next trick I can talk about is this curtain. So you might notice there's no bathtub back there. It's blocked off by the curtain. I really wanted to have the curtain opening into the back section. It's just a domino that falls over. It has to be balanced in the right way so that a ping pong ball can knock it over. But as long as it's a decent amount of weight on the end, it should be enough to pull this. I also have a weight here on the end of this big clothespin. And it's just a double pulley on the end of here. And the reason it's a double pulley, this particular type of pulley, is because the length of the section of curtain, I just set it off by myself, whoopsies. The length of the section of curtain is longer than the length of the wall. And so it's good to use a double pulley because then it only goes down about halfway. I did, interesting fact, had to put some magnets or block the magnets on the bottom because they were really frictiony with the tub itself because it is magnetic. This is just insane. I guess I could explain a little bit about the sort of origins of the idea. So my original thought is when I'm having a shower, it's like you notice little mechanical things that happen. You can pull this up to make the shower turn on, and I'm like, well, the water changes locations when it does that, so that could be used as a machine trick. I could have the water itself auto activate the shower, and then it changes its own location based on that. So that's sort of the basis of the idea. This part's pretty simple. It's just a bucket, and then I've just put these sections of like frictiony connects pieces that I can like push together to make it a little harder to pull it up, but with enough force, it'll just go immediately. The difficult part, once again, is activating the faucet. So you'll notice that it's turning this giant dial And it's a very sticky dial. It's already very hard to turn just with your hands in general. So how did I do that with the machine? Well, I recognize that there's two things that need to happen. One is a lot of weight needs to be able to pull on it. And two, it needs to have a jump start in order to move. And the way I do that is by using a mouse trap. So this ball, I have a little setup here, knocks a little lever over to activate this mousetrap. And the mousetrap basically serves both functions, kind of. It acts as the thing that pulls the initial trigger. It pulls this out of its sort of stuck position. But there's also a spacer from this weight wrapped around the end of the mousetrap. And so the mousetrap is locking in this weight. So not only does the mousetrap pull this to give the initial trigger, it actually drops this weight. The water catcher itself has changed a lot over time. Initially it was just the funnel as the water catcher, because I'm like, what funnels do I have? And then me, after 50 iterations of working on this machine, oh, I could just use a lampshade. Because I keep forgetting that that's an object I have available to me. But anyway, this is interesting because it's not taped down. What doesn't come undone is magnets. So I put magnets on the bottom, which allows me to sort of change the position of this and have it be relatively sturdy no matter where I put it. Really interesting thing about the duck, it actually has a mini shuffleboard piece underneath it, which has this sort of ball bearing in it, which allows it to roll pretty easily on its own. And it just has a little white rod on the end to keep it aligned. And so it's just barely enough of a slope so that the duck can't go down by itself. It needs the extra help from the water stream. Like, my initial plans for this was to just put the duck inside the tube and then have the water push it down. It doesn't work. It doesn't even come close. It's not even possible. And then of course we get to the elusive, friendly, but sometimes not so friendly flamingo. It's probably one of my favorite tricks in the video, probably my favorite trick of this section. Works really, really well. This thing is bonkers. This is one of the hardest tricks I've designed, like flat out. In terms of mechanism, this is top 3 hardest mechanisms I've ever designed. The amount of iterations this took to get it to do walking is ridiculous. It's counterbalanced in an interesting way. I have these weights sort of dangling down here, but I also, if I turn a little bird friend around, you'll see there's weights. Oh my God, there's weights back there. That's crazy. One of the weights actually makes this leg kick out. So you can see if I push this leg in, it naturally wants to kick out. The way it lifts up is just the fact that it's counterbalanced. There's a heavy weight on this side of the bird that allows it to be counterbalanced so that when it tips forward, it wants to naturally tip back. And when it tips back, that is when this kicks forward. I also rubbed some soap on the bottom of this block to make it extra slippery so it'd be very easy to kick. This mechanism, it was not working, or at least it wasn't working consistently. I would get it working maybe once and then never again. The final piece to the puzzle to get it to work was a spring. I put a little spring on it, and the force of it going back onto the spring is enough to literally act as the main kicker for the leg. I literally just took the spring out of like a mini flashlight, and that increased the reliability by like 80%. It was crazy. All right, and so with this, the bathroom machine has just been completed. I have finished the second half, and you can see there's a little bit of turmoil, a bit of destruction that has happened over here. I had to do another emergency cut, and I'll get into the weeds of it, but the spider just stopped working basically entirely. This is such a compact section. It's really not a big room. There's not a lot to work with. And I decided, hey, let's use literally every square inch of space and put a trick on it. The idea to start it off with a loofah going down a track was not quite the original idea. I didn't quite know how I was going to start it off. I just knew I needed a string pull coming in from behind the curtain. This actually resulted in a lot of fails. It doesn't really roll very well. It is somewhat spherical, but it is inconsistent at best. It hits a hairbrush over. I just found this hairbrush downstairs, and so I cleaned it off and installed it on a little hinge. And this spider was one of the original tricks I actually thought of for the bathroom section. It was one of the original inspirations for it, was to do this walking spider thing. I was browsing sort of YouTube shorts. I came across a K'NEX channel that does these weird contraptions out of K'NEX that mimic like actual creatures and stuff like that, like mostly bugs. And I saw a contraption that looked very similar to this, and I was like, that would be really cool to use in a machine. It sort of brought me down a train of thought that eventually led to the idea of having a hex bug on a K'NEX bug, which is kind of just a silly idea. I was honestly just kind of bored one day and wanted something fun to build. And as soon as I saw the K'NEX thing, online. I wanted to take a crack at it. I was able to do it. Unfortunate thing about a K'NEX motor contraption of any kind, regardless of the creature, is that K'NEX motors do tend to deteriorate over time. There's a couple ways this happens. I've experienced this in the past where K'NEX motors, the actual speed of the motor sort of decreases over time. But sometimes there's another peculiar quality about K'NEX motors, and that they have like a maximum amount of strain they can take before they start doing the click, 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 and they won't rotate. And that strain, that maximum strain, actually reduces over time. And it eventually reached a point where even with this little fishing line thing I eventually installed, it still did the clicking, like it still strained the motor, and it meant I had to film this in 2 parts. And the next one's also really funny. It's a ball going around the toilet. I bought these K'NEX tracks. I just bought a bunch of the pieces that I was sort of running low on, and then I noticed that the place was selling these, and these are also present in Armtech. I don't know when this happened, when my idea sort of struck to have the ball go around the rim of the toilet. I think it just came from, I knew I wanted to have like a plunger coming out of the toilet because that's funny. And then as soon as I sort of inspected the seat itself, don't worry, it's clean. I cleaned it yesterday. I just like I don't know, I just installed this track, I tested it, and it surprisingly was really easy to get consistent. Speaking of original foreign object tracks, we have another interesting thing over here. We have this slow moving paper towel roll thing. This is another really interesting one. I mean, this is just already in the bathroom. This is where this comes from. This is in this bathroom, this like toilet paper roll rack thing. And I just like tested having a thing go down, and it goes down kind of jaggedy and slowly, and it looks kind of cool. And so then I just installed a little lever here for the plunger when it comes up to react. I guess I should mention the release mechanism for the plunger was probably the hardest part. I ended up doing a magnet latch type thing where basically if you even like nick it a little bit, the magnet will naturally come loose because the plunger has nowhere to move this direction. It can only move this direction, and gravity also wants to pull it this direction. Anyway, it was complicated and also failed a lot. This connection here to the soap, so the soap was actually the last, this was the last trick that I thought of for this machine. I needed something to go here, and I knew this green ball is gonna need to start here and do this trick, but how am I gonna get it over there? Clearly there has to be something in this corner to bring the green ball over there, and so shell and soap was the idea I thought of. This is also from this bathroom. This is literally the soap from this bathroom, and I just rolled it down by chance. I was literally just gonna have it roll down like normally, like a cylinder, and then I rolled it down, and without making any adjustments, it just was the perfect amount of soap to perfectly recreate the honey trick that I made in Pool Party Machine. It was like, I didn't have to adjust it at all. It was just naturally slow moving because the liquid inside is so viscous that the center of gravity shifts slowly over time. The shell is a peculiar fascination. It's very old. It's been in every single bathroom I think I've lived in since I was a child, because allegedly my mom stole it when she was in university. I just figured having a ball rolled down it would be enough, especially if it was a part of a larger path, which it is. I also just installed a simple elevator, or like in theory it should be simple. This ended up causing a lot more problems than I thought it was. You know, a few 10-hour long fail compilation of 100 fails that came from this alone. I think it had something to do with the wooden sliders made it sort of inconsistent, because obviously wood like sort of slightly expands and contracts over time based on moisture content, and there's a water trick right over here. This idea to have the hairdryer blow up and a module to move at the same time to actually catch the ball that's floating. This was way different initially. Initially the hairdryer I had planned to be like sideways on this counter, have airflow move through a 90-degree pipe to float up the ball. Except apparently when you do that, the airflow just gets completely lost. Like you can't make a ping pong ball float by doing that unless you like have really, really good control of the airflow. So I ended up having to do it the traditional way of it standing up. I had to direct the airflow above it, and I had to make this complicated series of gears to spin the rods and successfully catch the ball. This is very particular. It's done like this for a very specific reason, and I'll actually demonstrate this reason right now. If I turn on the hairdryer, I'm gonna take this straw off, and we're gonna see what happens. You can see the ball literally just gets stuck right here. That's in spite of the fact that it's already vented. The straw placement, this being where it is here, this end cap, like all of those are very meticulous, as well as the weight. The fact that it is extremely lightweight was a necessity because it's on the end of just a thing attached to one single connects rod. And another feature that I'm really happy with that wasn't the plan initially is that this spinner stops spinning naturally once the catcher arrives into place. And I wasn't planning for that to be the case. I didn't expect that to be the case, but it actually has a really nice effect where when the catcher comes into place, this spinner naturally stops. Also, a little side note, this faucet is broken now, and I don't know for certain that it has to do with the fact that I was pulling it with a lot of weight in a Rube Goldberg machine a few months ago, because it has been quite a few months since that's been dismantled, but it is interesting to note that it is broken. I may or may not be partially responsible for it. Nonetheless, I had to do it again over here with this nozzle. And the way this works is bad, but it also is good because it works pretty consistently. It was just bad to construct. So the question on everyone's minds is how do you get a ping pong ball to turn on a faucet? Based on the fact that there's a lot of trickage happening around here, it's kind of hard to do an off-table string pull. So I came up with this sequence of leap day levers. The ball is strong enough to knock over this weight, which then pushes this weight. It's already basically pulling out a little rod that's jammed into the end of that connector. This weight's enough to nudge it and knock it forward. And the actual lever itself has 5 giant ring weights on the end. So it works pretty consistently though. It's able to very smoothly turn on the faucet. The actual faucet trick, I don't know when or how I thought of it, but I like this sort of symmetry. It's one of these sort of do multiple things of the same thing in a row trick. It's basically just one of those clear Lazy Susans with a track on top, and on the bottom of it has like this plastic piece that latches into each of these track sections, and so I can sort of demonstrate when the cup goes down, it just goes to the next section. Basically, it locks underneath each section. It also automatically stops. The thing that's stopping it is the lever itself. This lever is designed to not go any further than this, which means that the water stream wouldn't just go onto the counter, which it did initially in my initial tests. All right, and coming into the final trick of the section is the elusive deodorant roll. I think initially I was just gonna have the deodorant go down, oh, not like that, like this. I was gonna have it just go down by itself. And then eventually I was like, what if to fill in a little bit more space, I made it very complex. The presence of soap is very, very clear here in spite of there being maybe no soap trick per se. Okay, there is a soap trick, it's just a soap bottle. Okay, but I also used soap in the machine itself. Occasionally the actual roll here would slowly over time start to get slower and slower. Especially sometimes it would get stuck on the end of this one here, and so I had to sort of soap it up. And likewise the domino over here, I had to soap up this domino so it would actually go down the track consistently. But what's interesting is I actually used maple syrup. The thing itself is kind of slippery. It's like it rolls pretty well, but without a lot of friction, it's not gonna roll on its own. It kind of has to be propelled by itself. And so when it's just falling onto a section, it doesn't propel very easily. So I actually put just this faintest amount on a napkin and wiped it into the wood section a little bit. And so it doesn't feel particularly sticky, but it's slightly more frictiony than it otherwise would have been. Yeah, on to the next section.